and welcome to Newsmakers. I'm your host, Nancy Lewis. Today we're going to be talking about minimum wage in Missouri. We're here today at Truman Medical Center's Kansas City's Essential Hospital. So we're here with Missouri Representative Kevin Corlew, and we're going to talk a little bit about minimum wage. The governor vetoed a bill that would have kept cities from setting their own minimum wage in the state of Missouri, Kansas City being one of those. So what do you feel about that, and do you feel like cities should be able to set their own minimum wage?
Well, Nancy, first of all, thank you for having me on the
Sure.
show. I do appreciate it. You know, the legislature did pass a bill this year that deals with minimum wage and whether cities can increase that on their own or not. But even prior to that, there is a state law that prevents municipalities from enacting a minimum wage that's higher than the state level.
Right.
And the reason that is, and the reason that I think that decision should be made at the state level is because you do have a lot of businesses that interact and do business in various cities. You have cities like in Kansas City, you have multiple jurisdictions within an area where you might, for instance, in the Northland, you might have North Kansas City on one side of the street and Kansas City on the other, or Riverside or Gladstone. And it puts in a kind of an immediate competitive disadvantage from one business to being on one side of the street to the other. And so for some of those reasons, it's important to really have a good discussion on that and have it made at the state level as opposed to individual cities having a patchwork of minimum wage laws throughout the state.
Yeah, I was talking with someone here earlier who said, gosh, it's kind of hypocritical because, you know, the people in the legislature are always about local control until they don't want it to be about local control. So how would you respond to that?
Right, and I understand that's a concern that's been brought up, and it is important that we have decisions made at the local level for a lot of issues. When we're talking about commerce and the flow of business throughout cities in Missouri, though, and when you're talking about some of these most basic decisions, it is important that we have a uniform and consistent law throughout the state.
Does it matter at all that the cost of living is higher in some areas, like in Kansas City? So minimum wage for somebody living in Kansas City may not have the same impact as minimum wage as someone living in a small town in Missouri.
That does come into play, particularly, but probably more regionally than individual cities. Mm-hmm. For instance, there's a petition drive to bring a $15 minimum wage to Kansas City, but what they're comparing that to is the West Coast and East Coast, where the cost of living really is quite different. You know, when you look at a comparable amount of a $15 wage, it would be lower here just due to the cost of living. So it's more important, I think, that we look at regionally what impact the cost of living may have.
We don't have a ton of time, but I do want to get a small bit into economic development. You talk a lot about infrastructure. What are your priorities for that?
Well, on economic development, and I'm serving as the vice chair of Economic Development Committee, we've got some priorities that we have to take care of. We hear a lot from our economic development councils and our businesses. Some of the top needs that they're looking at are infrastructure, so roads, bridges, telecom, things like that. Also a skilled workforce, making sure that we have the tools to be able to provide companies with the workers that they need. And then the economic incentive packages and our overall tax structure. I've talked to a lot of people that they say that we have good programs in place, but they don't move along fast enough. There are too many hurdles to pass through. So I want to take a look at that and have been in a lot of talks with people to see how can we bring those programs, which have good tools in them, how can we bring them into the 21st century so they move at the speed that business now moves at.
So you have your work cut out for you.
Right.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And thank you for being here. We hope to see you next time on Newsmakers.